Michael Vick at BetUS.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365. Johnny Mack, that's an official Football Friday, my man. We have Eagles players on the field today in an Eagles jersey, tackling players on another football team. We got a game to be played today. How you doing on this Friday morning, John?
Yeah, happy. We'll call it cosplay Football Friday. No, they're actually gonna. You're not going to see Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry. You're probably not going to see Jalen Hurts. But there's going to be a reasonable facsimile. There's going to be live football, live reps. So that's a positive because you rarely see that. The Eagles have had 2 live periods this summer so far, just periods, not practices, obviously. And it's always third team versus third team, which I find so I find it awful, to be honest.
Yeah,
you're like, oh, it's essentially, oh, we'll let the third teamers go live, but you want to put everybody else in bubble wrap. I think it's terrible. And sure enough, McMullen Castles gets hurt in that 1 live period at the open practice at Lincoln Financial Field. So that's the biggest concern. And you don't have to go back long. Last year, preseason opener in Baltimore, same field. Zach McPherson tore his Achilles. Sean Bradley, I believe, same game. So that's the biggest goal: get out of there healthy as possible. And Zach was set to be a big part of the Eagles last year. He was going to be the backup slot corner, and he was going to be one of the better special teams players they had. And now you go back 12 months, you go forward 12 months, and he's up against it from a roster standpoint. But you hope everybody gets out of there healthy.
Good stuff. A Friday morning here. I want to welcome everybody in. I want to thank BetUS. By the way, our stream today, our show today, this Football Friday edition is brought to you by BetUS, a newest sponsor of JAKIB Sports and of Birds 365. So thank you to BetUS. Make sure you guys go check them out. Today I pinned the link in the chat. So thank you all. Thank you to BetUS. I'm going to welcome Demaria Smith. Drops us a little $5. Thank you, Demaria. And another new member, Johnny Mack, joined this morning. Let me find that person. Ryan becomes a member. Ryan, thanks for becoming a member. We appreciate you here on JAKIB Sports. We appreciate all our new members. Little exciting thing. I got home yesterday. I met up with Krause. For those who know King Krause, my dad, who runs JAKIB Sports with me. And he showed me a very cool mural type of thing, John, of Jalen Hurts. It's almost like a painting, and he's versing the Green Bay Packers in it. And there was only 2,000 of them made. I have number 400 or something along those lines. And I looked at it, and Krause said, "You want to hang this in the office?" And I said, "No, I want to give that away to the members on our channel." So I'll be showing you guys that maybe on Monday. I'm going to get it all framed up maybe and send it out. So that's exciting. I'm going to try and give away as much stuff as I can this year to the members. So pretty cool stuff. Johnny Mack, let's talk preseason. You just kind of got into it. We got a good show, by the way, planned. Damo coming up 8:20 and Ed Kracz coming up 9:20. Ed will be down at the game as well with John. So good stuff there. John, who are you expecting to play tonight for the Philadelphia Eagles? Who's the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles tonight in Baltimore?
I think it's going to be Kenny Pickett. Would it be a drop dead surprise if Jalen Hurts and company played a series? No, it wouldn't stun me, but I think they'll play it cautious, especially with the weather projected. Going to be concerns up and down I-95 corridor. We're under a tornado watch here in the Delaware Valley for at least till mid-afternoon or something. Baltimore's going to have some concerns as well. So when you add in that weather factor, I think they're going to play it cautious. The Ravens aren't going to play Lamar Jackson. They're not going to play Derrick Henry. So, yeah, if Bet US has got a potential bet, I would go that way, that you're not going to see Jalen Hurts for the Eagles tonight.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But Nick did not confirm that, of
I was going to
course.
say, that was where I was going next. You haven't been confirmed or anything. It's basically just speculation still. When do you expect to hear from Nick?
We're not going to talk to Nick until after the game. So, as we get down there to Baltimore, we'll see who's warming up on the field, who's getting ready, things like that. So it'll become apparent, but we're not going to talk to Nick until after the game.
Good stuff. How do they do it then? They put it out in a press release or what? Who's playing, or I guess you just don't know until the people run out in the field, or what?
Well, you have people and you text and with the organization, and usually they give you a little bit of a hint before the game. So, but that's more inside baseball. Obviously, there's no in a regular game. You have to declare your inactives. So, some teams will put out the laundry list of guys who aren't playing. Some teams don't. It's up to the team. Typically, the Eagles don't. I don't know if you want a competitive advantage, but it's not that big of a deal. It's preseason, so
yeah, it doesn't matter much. Who are you looking at, John? Who are you looking for tonight that you want to learn something about on the Eagles team? Is it Nakobe Dean? Is it a backup player? Where are your sights set? Tonight?
Well, it's mainly the guys fighting for jobs or backup players, and it starts. I looked at 5 players that really have to show up, and Nakobe's one of them. Tyler Steen's one of them. As far as guys with potential to play, and it'll be interesting. I mean, there's part of me that thinks if the Eagles are going to rest everybody, Nakobe will be in that category. And that'll indicate where he is in the organization's mind. If he's out there and a bunch of other guys are sitting, that also gives you an indication that they're like, all right, you no longer have this deference like this group, if that makes sense. So he's an interesting player for a number of reasons. Tyler Steen, because he missed just over a week, and it seems that Mekhi Becton has passed him for the time being. So he better have a good performance. And, then you start looking at some of the younger players, rookies, backup players. And one guy, I go back to last year's game at Baltimore, perfect example of, for all the talk of guys having a bad camp, Eli Ricks was having a bad camp. Was having a bad training camp. Right. He was not relevant. And all of a sudden, week 1 in Baltimore, preseason, shows up. He makes the big interception, the pick 6, and all of a sudden the Eagles are worried about other teams seeing that, because other teams don't get to see the Eagles practices. So they see that on film and they say, oh, this guy's got some coverage ability. And he had a reputation as being a big-time college player at one point. And they were concerned about losing him. And it was a guy who you didn't even consider, basically, because of a poor practice performance. All of a sudden, he's on the roster. So you can turn things around. And for me, that starts with Aniyah Smith. So it's been bad. It's been very bad. But this is his chance when the red light goes on. Make a play. Make a play. It could be in the return game. Could be as a receiver. Could be as a manufacturer touch guy. Make a play, and he's back in it. I see everybody do their projected 53. My cohorts who go to practice all the time, almost all of them leave them off now. That could change in one fell swoop if he makes a play in Baltimore. And he's still got plenty of time to do that, because it could be in one of the other preseason games as well. Because he's going to get plenty of playing time. So guys like that, Johnny Wilson on the other end of the spectrum has impressed a lot of people. Let's see if he can do it in the game. That's going to be interesting. And then the quarterbacks. I mean, Kenny Pickett and Tanner McKee. I think people are going to be surprised how athletic Kenny Pickett is. I've been surprised.
Yeah, I saw your article in SI about that, and you spoke about it a little bit yesterday on the show. But that's a good thing to have. I mean, when your quarterback one is Jalen Hurts, you know.
Yeah, and Tanner McKee is. A lot of people think he's pushing Kenny Pickett. I don't think he is, but he's still. The Eagles like him a lot. The most disappointing point to me is if we get to see Will Greer. I'll be like, all right. Time to get the buses going. Nothing against Will. I mean, he's not relevant to this. It's like, and I don't understand that from NFL teams. And you know, you're giving reps to guys who aren't going to be on the team or aren't going to help the team, especially when you have young players that need to develop, like Tanner McKee. It doesn't make sense to me, but you're probably going to see some Will Greer. Unfortunately, hopefully not a lot.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. You kind of answered the super chat here just now, but Jason 18, thank you for the $2, man. We appreciate it. One of our channel members as well, Jason. Thank you. He says, "What are a few players you want to see most?" You kind of just heard that from Johnny Mac. John, anyone you left out that you want to respond to Jason with that might be out there?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, the rookies, you're always excited.
Hey, you think like Quinyon will play? That's one that I'm waiting.
Yeah, I think, you know, I don't think he's going to be in the deference category. He's not entrenched as a starter, so I think you'll see him a little bit, not a lot. And we'll see. Again, the weather's going to play into it. If it's raining a lot and it's a slick field, and Nick did talk about that a little bit, that might change the thought process. That could change things dramatically. It really could. So number one, you have to understand that if there's a ton of rain out there, they're going to be very, very cautious. And there might be a ton of rain out there. So you got to keep an eye on that. As I mentioned, Thomas Booker's a guy I'm interested to see. And Zach McPherson for that. There's so many layers to the Zach McPherson story, not to mention he tore his Achilles at M&T Bank Stadium last year in the preseason opener.
Yeah.
Talk about a mental hurdle on that very field. You know, so there's a lot of layers with Zach McPherson. I think he's an NFL player, and it's going to be really tough for him to make this team, but he's trying to put out tape for everybody else. He's somebody I'm very interested. Vic mentioned the other day, Vic Fangio mentioned the other day, about the D tackles, he called them the pure D linemen. So the guys inside on the 5-man front, the 4-eye techniques, the 5, the shade the shade nose, the shade guys like Jordan Davis. He said there's got to be a minimum of 5 on the roster to 7. Now he's going to have to do lobbying to get 7 with Howie Roseman, and I don't think he's getting 7. But if 6 is the common ground, you know, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Milton Williams, Marlon Tuipulotu safe, Moro Jomo has made this team. That's 5. If he can talk Howie into a 6th, Thomas Booker's a guy we don't talk a lot about, but he's had a very good camp, very, very steady player as a younger player. One of the more under-discussed players on this team. He might be that guy, especially if he plays well in the preseason.
Yeah, good stuff there. It'll be interesting. I don't know. 6 seems deep there, but we'll see what they end up doing. A lot of excitement, I think, for tonight, John. I know it's not many people are going to play, but it's just the preseason. But, you know, like I said at the start of the show today, the Eagles are going to be on a football field tonight, wearing their jersey, wearing Eagles green, out there playing an opponent that's not the Eagles. I think that's exciting. And
it's a good team. That's part of it, too. Now, the Ravens aren't going to play, as I said. They're not going to play their good players. Certainly, they're not going to play Lamar. They're not going to play Derrick Henry. They're not going to play Mark Andrews. They're not going to play Kyle Hamilton and some of their great defenders and players like that, and Roquan Smith and everybody like that. But, you know, they're a good team, and they won, you know, 24 straight preseason games at one point. So John Harbaugh plays to win, and he's not going to play to win. And by that, I mean he's not going to play Lamar Jackson to win a preseason game. He's not going to play. But the guys out there are going to play to win the game. And that's a good test for the Eagles' younger players.
Yeah, the Jay Perfect checks in. He says, heard the Birds ruining some preseason records tonight. They did lose last year, right?
They did lose.
Yeah, neither of us.
Tells you how much I pay attention.
I know.
They
Neither
lost
of
to
us even know. Yeah.
Yeah. I joke about it all the time. It's the greatest streak in the history of sports. And in some ways it is, because it's such an anomaly. It's ridiculous. I mean, nobody plays to win these games. But I always go back. I covered Dennis Green, rest in peace, passed away, great coach. And he had he had a philosophy, and he told me, winning is a habit. Winning is a habit. Winning is a habit. And he took over a bad team and he turned them around right away. And that was his thought process. He's going 4-0 in the preseason at the time, 3-1. And he would say winning is a habit. And that same era, Marv Levy, the coach of the Bills, who made the Super Bowl, 3 consecutive times, which is an amazing feat, but it's kind of overlooked because they didn't win it. He basically would get every year trounced in the preseason, and they were a very good team,
right?
And people were going, "What's wrong with the Bills? What's wrong with the Bills?" And he was just looking for those 3 or 4 players at the end of the roster to try to find them.
Yeah, I think that's what's exciting about it. You look for those couple guys, and you said last year was Eli Ricks. I think that's what excites me, where you can get the opportunity for somebody to do something, that they weren't able to do in camp or whatever.
But there's those conflicting, but you've got guys, and Harbaugh's obviously in that camp, and winning has become a habit for the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
Now people, the haters will say, well, they lose in the playoffs. They're consistently good over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And it's very in a league where it's very, very difficult to win. And that's his thought process. And I can tell you, people in Philadelphia still love, and I'm talking about the organization, still love John Harbaugh, who was here for many years as one of Andy Reid's top assistants before he went to Baltimore. And yeah, they're a good team to play against, because they're always going to test you.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. We'll get to our first commercial break. We have Paul Domowitch, Hall of Fame selector. He's been covering.
Yeah, Damo's having some computer problems, so he might be a little bit late, but hopefully we get him, because I do want to talk to Damo about Nick Foles and the Nick Foles retiring as an Eagle. And there's going to be all that talk, which I'll get in trouble for. He's not a Hall of Fame player. But he's such a unique player. Had such a unique career. You can't even come up with a comp. I mean, you
really can't. Wait, John, do you believe that Nick Foles deserves to be an Eagles Hall of Famer? I know he's not an NFL Hall of Famer. I mean, they're not going to go that far. But you think he's an Eagles Hall of Famer?
I don't.
Yeah, I get why you say you don't, because you look at people like McNabb, who had years of wins and accolades and records and all sorts of things. We got 1 Super Bowl, John.
But I know. But and I say this even about Eli Manning when I talk about if there was a Super Bowl Hall of Fame, I would put him in there.
Yeah, no, but this is the Eagles Hall of Fame.
No, so but I'm saying it's expanding it to the pro football. He's not even in the conversation.
I know.
Kind of expanding it to Eli, who will be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and that will be not good. But if for the Eagles Hall of Fame, look, when I was covering the NBA. Retired numbers are an interesting thing to me, because, bad organizations would retire good player numbers because they didn't have anything else and they just wanted something to hang on it.
Right.
In Cleveland, it was Bingo Smith for old basketball fans. Very good player. No, should not have retired. And then LeBron James comes along and you say, oh, you got LeBron and Bingo Smith. The Chicago Bulls pre Michael Jordan, Bob Love for old school NBA people. really good player. Not in the realm. And then you get Michael Jordan, and you're like, what are we doing here? What
Right,
are
right.
we
Yeah.
comping? To me, and again, everybody's got different definitions. If you retire somebody's number or put somebody in your organization's Hall of Fame, that should be very rare. That should be rarefied. That's the Chuck Bednareks of the world, the Tommy
No, I hear what
McDonald's,
you're
the Hall of
saying,
Fame.
but John, the first one, like even let's say because I see what you're saying. Let's just say for a second, Jalen Hurts is going to be the Michael Jordan of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's going to win 4 Super Bowls in a 18-year career and break every record. Let's just say for the sake of the conversation, Foles is still an important figure because he got the
He's a
first
very
Super Bowl.
important figure. That's
Well,
a
that's
different
where I think Eagles
conversation.
Hall of Fame is different, and that's where he does deserve to be in the Eagles Hall of Fame because the Hall of Fame for the Eagles is based on the team. He did something no other player ever has. He
Well, he did.
displayed Goliath when
Are
he
you
did
going
it.
to put? Are you going to put Trey Burton in the Eagles Hall of Fame? No, of course not. Nobody said that.
No, but Trey Burton
know,
didn't have the impact that Nick Foles did. Come on, Nick
no,
Foles threw for 800 yards in 2 games in that playoff run.
but yeah, I mean, he had a great 2-game run. I mean, phenomenal, and that's why I say he's so unique as a player. He had the 27-2 season. He think about the 27-2 season, which is historic statistically, certainly. Chip Kelly didn't even want him. I mean, it's such an interesting career. It is because his heights were so high, and the vast majority of his career, and certainly only played well for Philadelphia. Everywhere else he went, he was terrible. And even here, you have the people forget that Carson Wentz wasn't healthy at the beginning of 2018, and Nick Foles had to play those, and it wasn't good. And people forget pre to the Super Bowl when Carson got hurt in Los Angeles, when Nick came in, it wasn't good early at all. And, ultimately he deserves credit, all the credit in the world for that 2-game run. And I've always compared it, too much basketball analogy, but I'm going Jim Schwartz only with basketball. I've always compared him to Vinnie Johnson, who's, the microwave, the old Detroit Pistons. When he got hot, look out, man. Look out. But, over the length of a season, you wanted Isaiah Thomas and Joe Dumars, not Vinnie Johnson.
I see what you're saying for sure. Yeah.
But when he got hot, it was special. And it's you don't see that. There's not a lot of comparison. If someone's got him, throw him at me. I can't think of another comparison who played that high and then was just a guy the rest of the time. It was weird. It was weird, unique, and everything. But I got a high bar for Hall of Fame, even team Hall of Fame, retired numbers. The Eagles still haven't retired Randall Cunningham's number, I believe. I'll double check in the break. I mean, they've kind of soft retired it, as we said. They don't give out number 9. Josh Sweat wanted number 9 this year, which was his high school number, his college number. They wouldn't give it to him. So they kind of soft retired it. I don't think they're going to retire it. They certainly, and have they retired Randall's number? I'll look it up.
I know Seth's in the Eagles Hall of Fame. I know a couple other guys are.
Well, not in the Hall of Fame. Retired numbers.
Okay, yeah, they're separate things.
Donovan's number is retired. Steve Van Buren, Brian Dawkins.
I don't know. I'm kind of with you on the number thing. The Eagles Hall of Fame, I think Nick should definitely be in, just because I think there's
I think he definitely will be in the Eagles Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I don't.
But again, my standard is higher. I acknowledge.
Yeah, that's all right.
We're in an era of everybody deserves a trophy, and everybody, I'm a wrestling guy. Everybody's got to have a championship belt. Everybody's got to have it. He's going to be in the Eagles Hall of Fame. I don't dispute that at all. Should he be? I don't think he should be, but that's my standards higher.
Yeah, I
to be
know, but I will
perfectly
say,
honest.
you got to put some stock in that he reached the pinnacle, right? Like even guys like Randall and Donovan, and they
Yeah,
never
but
reached the
that's
pinnacle
my
as good
point.
of a player as they were.
It's not quarterback versus quarterback.
No, I know
I
that. I
mean,
know that. I
he
mean,
technically beat Tom Brady. If anybody wants to argue Nick Foles, and I've heard him do it because we're in Philadelphia, you're insane. You shouldn't be talking about football. Um, there are 52 other players on the field. Everybody's contributing. Zach Ertz on 4th and 1. Alshon Jeffrey with the great catch. Corey Clement, undrafted free agent out of nowhere, making big plays. Brandon Graham with the strip sack. On and on and on. Trey Burton with the Philly special, the trigger man of the Philly special. On and on and on. How many people contributed to that Super Bowl? Yeah, it bothers me that it's always quarterback versus quarterback. Now, Nick played phenomenally in the Super Bowl, and he played even better in the NFC Championship game. That 2-game run, this is the unique part of that. Carson Wentz very well may have been the MVP of the NFL that season if he didn't get hurt. And the Eagles would have never been in the position they were in to make sure that Atlanta and Minnesota had to go through Lincoln Financial Field to get to the Super Bowl if it wasn't for Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz at the time, despite all the revisionist history, was worlds better than Nick Foles. At the same time, if he stayed healthy, the Eagles might have won the Super Bowl, but there's no way Carson would have played like Nick Foles played in those 2 games. There's no way. They might have won the games, but there is no stinking way that he would have played to the level that Nick Foles played in those 2 games. So it's weird. But that, to me, when you say Hall of Fame, whether it's, again, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is way different. But even Team Hall of Fame, to me, that means consistent greatness for your particular team over a long period of time.
like Fletcher Cox, like Jason Kelsey, as the recent examples.
Exactly. And that's just me. And everybody can have their own definition.
No, I understand. I respect where I respect where you're coming from. I would say I believe Nick should be in the Eagles Hall of Fame just because I think the severity of that. But I see what you're saying, where there's so much context to it that's left out. It's not just Nick Foles. I get it. I get what you're saying completely. But we'll talk to Damo about it, see what he has to say. We'll see what the Eagles end up doing. They did give him the statue with Doug Peterson, but we'll see what they end up doing with everything with the Hall of Fame and all that. I think it's cool that he's retiring as an Eagle. I'll give him that. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, by far he had the most success with the Eagles, so that part makes sense. He loved playing here. Why wouldn't he? I mean, he's treated like a Hall of Fame player here, so that was a no-brainer for him. I mean, he's not going to retire as a Ram or a Jaguar.
Yeah.
So that part was a no-brainer for him. Very unique career. Tremendous guy, but better guy than a football player by far. Just a great teammate to everybody. Such an interesting career though. And I hope Damo gets these computer issues fixed, because that's the Hall of Fame selector for Philadelphia. He was there for every step of the way for Nick Foles' career in Philadelphia and the NFL as a whole. And he can put his perspective on his career because it is such a unique career.
Do coaches make the team Hall of Fame? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, you can put anybody in
there.
There's executive
from our man, one of our members, our buddy Eduardo. Wait, if Nick goes in, does that mean Doug Peterson goes in as well? That's a hell of a
there are no rules to team. The rules are the individual team. There's executive, like everybody's got a ring of honor now. Some people call it a Hall of Fame. The Eagles call it most people call it a ring of honor, where they just put the names around the ring of the stadium, the inside ring of the stadium. There's executives, there's coaches, there's players. And there's always one or two that you go to different stadiums and you go, you see there, the Jets are a perfect example. I believe, and Jets fans can correct me, because I believe Emerson Boozer is in their Ring of Fame, who was a very good running back. One of the great names in history. I love his name, Emerson Boozer.
I see where you're going with it. This whole thing is a slippery slope, though.
Yes, yes. So, I just think people should recognize he had a spectacular. It's like a shooting star, man.
I will say, talking about the Eagles Hall of Fame, I don't know about NFL Hall of Fame, but there's 4 guys that have been on this team. 2 just retired and 2 more left to go. I think they're all going to be Eagles Hall of Famers when you talk about Jason Kelce, Fletcher.
Oh, yeah.
And then
there's no doubt about that.
And Lane Johnson. I think
those are Eagles Hall of Famers. And most of them
are
are Pro Football Hall of Famers. Jason will be in. Fletcher should be in. Lane, in my opinion, is a Hall of Fame player.
You think they're going to knock him for, the stuff Lane had early in his career with the steroid stuff?
I don't think so. They don't do that in football. They do it in baseball. They don't do it in football. Yeah. I think he's going to be a Hall of Fame player.
He certainly has played like one, if he didn't get on, I think it would be because of some of those other things,
and Brandon is not going to be, because he doesn't have the stats to be, and
he'll be an Eagles Hall of Famer. He won't be.
Oh yeah. But those guys, that to me is a perfect. Those guys are slam dunk, no brainer, franchise Hall of Famers. And that's the kind of people I'm talking about. To have four guys like that at one time in this era, in the free agency era, it doesn't happen. So
no, I agree. We got Damo who just checked in, so good to have Damo. We're going to get to our first break here. I want to tell you guys a little bit about our newest sponsor, BetUS. I want to thank BetUS for being a part of it. They're a new sponsor on the channel, so we thank BetUS for being here on Birds 365 and JAKIB Sports. Are you looking for a new sports book this football season? BetUS is the answer, and JAKIB Sports is proud to announce our new partnership for the upcoming season. Right now, receive a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000. And I love this one, up to 200% sign-up bonus if you deposit using crypto. So good stuff there. If it's good enough for former Eagles quarterback Michael Vick, it's definitely good for JAKIB Sports fans. So thank you to BetUS. I attached the link in the description there. You'll see that pinned at the top, and I'll put it in the comments as well after the show. So make sure you guys click that. Go to betus.com.pa, betus.com.pa. The link is also in the description. Thanks, BetUS. We'll be right back with Paul Domowitch.
Michael Vick at betus.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find, or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights, or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm, or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your greenhouse? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up and go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Football Friday edition of Birds 365, our first really official Football Friday with the Eagles playing a game tonight. Damo, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for holding on with me. I was having some computer problems.
Thanks.
Yeah,
for
it happens, man. We might have some weather problems here at any moment. It was sunny in my backyard, Damo. It looked like the end of days in my front yard. So I don't know what's going on, but we'll see what goes on today. And that might affect the game tonight in Baltimore as well, with playing time and things like that. But before we get to that, a perfect time to have you on because Nick Foles announces his retirement as a Philadelphia Eagle. No surprise there.
Yeah.
What a unique career, Damo. I mean, I can't find a comp. Those highs versus just the rest of the time.
Yeah.
It is amazing to me what the 27-2 season, the Super Bowl run, the NFC Championship game, and the Super Bowl, like a shooting start. Nobody was going to play at a higher level than he played in those two particular games. He's never started more than 10 games as an Eagle. I don't think people realize that. He's never started more than 11 games as a season in a season for anyone. Is there anybody? You're a Pro Football Hall of Fame guy. Is there anybody comparable to this story?
It's an amazing career. I mean, you're right. I mean, led the league in passer rating the 1 year. Throws an NFL record tying seven touchdown passes out in Oakland that 1 year.
Yeah.
And then gets traded for Sam Bradford. Then wins comes back and wins the Super Bowl. You think he's going to finish strong and with these other teams, sign a big free agency contract and be a starter somewhere else, and it doesn't work out anywhere. Remarkable career, though. I mean, he'll never have to buy a drink.
No, not here.
He doesn't drink, but whatever he drinks, it's for free every time he's in Philadelphia. So when Carson Wentz went down, I thought their season in 2017 was over.
I think we all did. I think they did. I remember being at the NovaCare complex for that Monday press conference. It was like a week.
Yeah.
It was like, and
it wasn't really till the playoffs that all of a sudden there was a different person at quarterback, and he had a playoff for the ages and a Super Bowl for the ages. It was incredible.
Well, I think it was ironic because I was talking before you popped on. I was like, Carson, if he doesn't get hurt, very well might have been the MVP that year.
Yeah.
And the Eagles might have went on to win the Super Bowl. But what I say is they wouldn't have won it the same way. There's no way he could have played at the level of Nick Foles in those two games, Minnesota in the championship game and the Super Bowl against the Patriots. They may have won it a different way, but you can't play at a higher level than he played in the Super Bowl. I think John DiFilippo should get a lot of credit. Doug mentioned he and Frank Reich at the time. When he did come in at first, as you mentioned, Dom, it wasn't good. It looked kind of ugly. And then they scaled back the offense and they kind of remade it. And if you go all the way back to the 27-2 run, the Chip Kelly era, that's who he had the most success with.
Yeah.
He was always an RPO guy. And, you know, he wasn't going to be zone read because he wasn't a threat as a runner. But he just had a great feel in that particular offense. And Chip didn't want him.
Yeah.
He traded a stinking Sam Bradford. Such a weird career.
Chip didn't want LaShawn McCoy. He did, you know, we can go on and on. I mean, his playoffs, third down is so important in football. And in those three playoff games in 2017 season, particularly the Super Bowl, I mean, he was unstoppable on third down. I mean, you know, what he did, outplaying Tom Brady, just amazing.
Damo, I know Nick Foles is not an NFL Hall of Famer. Johnny Mack and I were just kicking this around. Do you believe he deserves to be in the Eagles Hall of Fame?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just on the basis of, the Super Bowl. I mean, it's not a career. You don't have to look at an entire career and balance that for the Eagles Hall of Fame. I mean, what he meant to this city and to that franchise, just helping them win that one Super Bowl, should earn him entrance into the Eagles Hall of Fame.
Should they? Because that, I agree. He's a no-brainer for the Eagles Hall of Fame. Now, I'm a tough grader, Damo. I think these franchise Hall of Fames are ridiculous. They put anybody in. I'm in for more of the Pro Football Hall of Fame standard. It should be like Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelsey and Brandon Graham. And those are franchise Hall of Famers for any franchise.
Right.
That's kind of how I look at it. But I know that's not how everybody else looks at it. Retired numbers. They've soft retired his number. They haven't even retired Randall's number.
Yeah, that would be a reach for me. I think even Nick would agree. I mean, like I said, the man is going to be loved forever in this city and revered. Belongs in the Eagles Hall of Fame. I don't. When you're talking retiring a number, that's when you're talking a career. What he's meant over the course of his career to a team. It's almost like measuring him as you would for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And that would be a tremendous reach for me, unless they're just so eternally grateful for what he did in that one game in those playoffs that they, but I don't think that'll ever happen.
Well, they should be eternally grateful for that. But
you got the hardware. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Josh Sweat wanted 9 this year. They wouldn't give it to him. So they have soft retired the number. I do not think they will retire the number, by the way. But they have, they're going to hold it for a while at least. And that's respect, by the way.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you got to get to Randall before you can get to Nick Foles, to say the least. And probably Jalen down the road, Jalen Hurts.
They haven't retired Jaworski's, right? I mean, 7.
No. Ron too. Yeah. Good bringing up Ron. So it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. I do think it's a different era. I think it's, everybody's got a championship. Everybody's got this. I mean, it was a great 2-game run. It was phenomenal. It's unbelievable. But over the long haul, I don't think Nick was that kind of person. He was a great teammate. Everybody loved him. And man, that was a special run.
Yeah, it sure was.
Yeah. But you've seen Super Bowls, Tim Smith and names, and some guys, people have big moments on the big stage and they live forever. And that's going to be the case with Nick Foles. And that should be the case with Nick Foles. And we go from that tremendous big moment on big stage to the biggest stage of them all, the preseason opener. What if anything can you take from these games in these environments?
Not much from your veterans. I mean, it's a chance for young guys to make a team. There are guys you want. It's going to be interesting to see. Not necessarily tonight, because I don't know, how much the weather is going to factor in his willingness to play anybody of significance. You've already saw, like with the Jets. I mean, Aaron Rodgers isn't even playing in the joint practices today that they're having because of the wet grounds, and I think it'll be the same way tonight with the Eagles, assuming that I can't imagine Ravens Stadium is going to be it's going to be wet if nothing else, even if the rain is done by then. So, it's a chance for young guys in the preseason to make a team, and that's what's kind of fun to watch. The bottom of your depth chart kind of get formed. The rest, you can't put too much credence in, I mean, I see everybody's going gaga over Jalen not throwing an interception in training.
Yeah. Elliot's got the Wilt Chamberlain picture up, the famous Wilt Chamberlain picture.
Yeah.
Which I thought was hilarious, by the way.
It was pure comedy, Elliot, doing that.
Everything's got to be in the preseason has got to be put into
proper context. And I try to do that on this show. And I do think it's a positive. And I've said from day one throughout his career, and he's still a young guy, he's just turned 26, but Jalen Hurts has always been very ball security conscious. And I thought last year was an outlier, and I thought it would regress back to the mean. And I do think it's a positive that they are seemingly, and maybe it's just an overcorrection to the issues they had with ball security last year. I think he'll regress back to where he typically is, and I think that'll be a positive for the Eagles. But he is going to throw some interceptions, and probably against the Patriots in practice next week. They get to see somebody else. Big plays his safeties in the parking lot, Damo, at the start of every single play. So that's going to change as well. You're trying to accomplish different things in practice. You're not trying to win a play, right, or you're trying to get better. And I think a lot of people can't wrap their heads around that, to be honest.
Yeah. It's I mean, they clearly, during the off season with Jalen, right at the top of the things to do list is cutting down on the interceptions. I mean, takeaways, it's a big reason why, when you look at all the things that went wrong for that offense last year, you got to start with the turnovers. You do away with those, at least you're hanging on to the ball, So, I mean, I think we're going to see a much different quarterback this year from the standpoint of, caution, better decision making. I don't think he's not going to be afraid to throw deep. I don't think he's going to be afraid to throw over the middle. I just think he's going to be smarter about it.
Yeah, and if you're a statistical person, John has pointed this out on the show many times. If you get rid of those turnovers, last year statistically, Jalen was better than he was in 22, which is hard for some people to believe. But John has pointed that out many times on this show. Damo, I'm excited to see the rookies tonight. I think it's a good opportunity for those guys to get on the field. But when you talk about a guy like Quinyon Mitchell, their first-round pick, how much would you expect him to be, on the field tonight? I guess the weather will be a factor. If it's pouring, he might not get much. But I'm excited for the rookies. But will a guy like Quinyon Mitchell kind of get that same treatment as a veteran, not because he's earned it, but because they've invested a first-round pick in him and they want to keep him healthy?
I think so, Zander. Also because Monday and Tuesday, John, they have the joint practices.
They're just having one on Tuesday, which I don't like, by the way. But
yeah. Well, still, it's because of usually they play these in the past several years. Seems like every one of their preseason games has been on a Thursday.
Yeah, they're playing Thursday. Next week
is Thursday. But this one, I think it cuts a day off. I think a guy like Mitchell will probably not play at all, like a veteran tomorrow or tonight, just because he'll probably get a lot of playing time in that joint practice next week.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't bring that up earlier. I'm trying to get through Baltimore, so I'm not thinking about. You're right, but that joint practice is going to be the most important practice of the summer, at least from how the Eagles handle these types of things. Tim, our buddy Tim McManus had a tremendous piece that came out this week, tremendously reported, well sourced. To me, the most interesting part of it was the Wink Martindale stuff.
Yeah.
And that was, something I don't think any of us heard before. So, again, hat tip to Tim and Jeremy Fowler for that. I think that's a good thing. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing for Brian Daboll and the Giants because they were still, arguing back and forth. And Wink said in the piece, he's like, I've been coaching for 30, 40 years, and nobody's ever done that before. It didn't work because they got trounced. But I think it was I think that shows Jalen's work ethic and his ability to uncover every rock to try to figure out what's wrong. So that's the good. Now, to me, the bad, Damo, was why can't the Eagles coaching staff figure this out? Why can't the Eagles coaching staff help them? What was your take on the Wink Martindale stuff?
I thought it spoke volumes for his lack of trust in the people in the building late last season. Although, I mean, the guy you would have went to, your defensive coordinator, is Matt Patricia at that point.
Yeah.
Nobody had any trust in Matt Patricia. So I don't blame him for thinking he's going to get answers from this guy because Matt Patricia didn't really care how the offense was doing. He's just trying to keep his career going. It was kind of strange. And Wink, I'm trying to think, Wink had not severed ties.
No, he had not. No.
So, yeah.
Well, he did and he didn't. He knew he wasn't coming back, but because it wasn't official.
He was not going to leave. To say this was a situation where you were calling up a defensive coordinator that you knew was going to stay there, why would you expect him to be honest with you? I mean, I don't understand Jalen's reasoning. I mean, I like it that he's reaching out to find out what's going wrong here and what teams are doing to him. Although it was kind of obvious to everyone with the blitz that they weren't handling it well. I'm not sure what kind of answer. But, I mean, if Wink wasn't leaving the Giants, he wouldn't tell them what they were doing against – he wouldn't –
Oh, yeah.
He wouldn't give Jalen the answers to the question.
Which is I've seen some New York people upset, and they should be because – you shouldn't be doing.
Well, wasn't
that.
Wink gone at that point? This was I thought he was. I thought he got let go right after that Week 18 game, and then
it took a little bit of time. It took a little bit of time. Now, I think in his mind he was gone, and that's why he did it.
Yeah,
but it wasn't official.
One of the problems I have with last year and Nick is, and it leads to Jalen. We saw early on in the season, John and Zander. I mean, the teams, Minnesota was blitzing the hell out of them. New England, I believe, would blitz the hell out of them. I mean, it was clear what teams were going to do against him. I said this last year that my problem with Nick last year was that there was a heavy touch of arrogance with him in that they were coming off the Super Bowl. He thought this offense was unstoppable. He didn't seem to realize the defensive coordinators were spending the offseason in the film room trying to figure out what to do against this guy like Wink did and everybody else. And so he went with the same formula. He didn't have any adjustments. He didn't do anything. He just thought we're good enough and it'll work again. And it didn't.
Yeah.
And by the end of the season, it just completely.
Now, I will say, I think it hurt that it was you mentioned week 1 and week 2. It was Belichick and Flores. So I think they kind of thought, well, Belichick's Belichick. He's going to throw some unique stuff. And then Flores is blitzing everybody like a lunatic. So I don't think they thought that was an indication of what was coming for the rest of the season, but it pretty much was.
Yeah, exactly. You look at the blitz percentages in almost every game, and they were much higher than they were for any other team.
And I think they were caught off guard by that. I thought it's Flores, it's Belichick. And
Yeah.
It'll settle down, and it never really settled down to a certain. I mean, they got up to a 10-1 start. That's part of it too, because even though they were miserable and they weren't getting style points, at the end of the day, when you win, you're like, all right, well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And
somebody asked Nick, I think the other day in the press conference, about handling the blitz and whether the key was going to be, this year, making sure he's got hot receivers to throw to. And Nick made a point of saying it's not just that. He's got to get rid of the ball quicker.
Well, that's all they did was
Yeah.
the wide receiver screens, all that crap.
Yeah.
You do have to have you do have to do all those things. But that's the part where I think people Jalen deserves some of the rips for that, because it's not like you can go back to, I say it all the time, you can go back to Indy tape and see how Phillip Rivers handled the blitz, and he was using hot routes. So it's not, I find it very hard to believe that the Eagles didn't have hot routes built into their offense, because high schools have that.
Yeah.
But I go back to Jalen's press conference, which everybody is talking about his back and forth with me and Martin and Tim. But I think the most important part of this whole thing is a guy who wasn't even mentioned in that article, and that's Jason Kelce. And it's not Jason Kelce's fault. He has a great relationship with Jalen Hurts. None of it. But they weren't going to give him autonomy until Jason left. And they should. I mean, why would you?
Yeah.
You got a Hall of Fame center. And Jalen said, it's been a role I've been waiting on. This is what he said in the press conference. I know I've had a well-respected guy, a Hall of Fame guy that's been doing it. Now we're forced to have an opportunity to do that, something I've been wanting. And I think that's how it's supposed to be. So now it's all on the quarterback. And Kellen Moore said he's got the trump card now.
Yeah.
He's got the trump card. Now it's up to him, man. It's all there. You got it. You got it.
I'd be interested, and I haven't talked to Jason in a couple of years about, when you go back and look at a guy like Peyton Manning when he was playing and he had Jeff Saturday as his center. The two of them with Tom Moore, they would they sat in the film room all day on Monday together and watched film and of the upcoming opponent. And, I mean, they were a team as far as dealing with the blitz and things like that. And I don't know how much, of a partnership Jalen had with Jason, or if they just trusted Jason to make all the calls himself.
I think they just trusted Jason.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It should have been more collaborative.
Right.
Yeah, because it's just another set of eyes, right? Like it almost could make you doubt yourself if you're the quarterback. If you see one thing and Jalen and Jason calls something else. I'm not saying Jason was wrong, but any seeds of doubt make it tougher to make a decision in this.
And I always go back to Brady. Brady had that viral clip earlier in the spring, and he was like, that's where, and he mentioned Peyton, and he mentioned Drew Brees, and he mentioned Phillip Rivers as well. And he said, that's how we grade ourselves. Did we, not about touchdowns, not even about Super Bowls, not about wins. Did we get our team in the right play to play? Did we do that consistently? That's how they graded themselves. And I think that's the right way. And I think that's what everybody should be striving for, a quarterback that can handle things at the line of scrimmage and get their particular team in the right play. Doesn't mean you're going to execute it. Doesn't mean it's going to be successful. But if you're in the right play, you got a better chance than if you're going to run. You don't recognize a heavy box and you don't change the play and all that kind of stuff. So he's going to have that. He's going to have more. I'm not going to say he's going to have Tom Brady or Pete Manning autonomy, but he's going to have more. And that's what he's wanted. And he was very honest about that. He said he has been wanting that, and it wasn't going to come as long as Jason was here. So
Yeah.
It's not Jason's fault, but it's a silver lining to losing a great player, I think. And we'll see how it kind of shakes out.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's ready. It's a challenge because it's a new offense, in addition to losing your center. But I think he seems comfortable in it. At least what we've seen so far in the brief glimpses in training camp. So,
yeah. He has done a good job. All right, back to tonight in the Ravens. I go back to Eli Ricks last year, Damo. He was having a bad camp, bad practice player. And all of a sudden, in the fourth quarter of a meaningless game against a fourth-string quarterback who telegraphed this thing like AT&T, pick six, the rest is history. He's making this team. The Eagles are scared. Everybody saw it. They don't want to put him on waivers. That's where I think this is exciting because Anaya Smith this year's had a bad camp, man.
Yeah.
But he makes one play tonight, he can change the whole thing around.
Yeah.
And that to me is the exciting part of preseason football.
It is. Like I said, with young kids, they're not getting a lot of reps in training camp. They're not getting a chance to flash and show the coaches what they can do. So you go into a game like this, you make a big play, and suddenly people are noticing you. Suddenly the coaches are looking at the film and seeing you again, and then you're getting more reps the next week in practice, and you have a chance to do something, to make a team, to move up the depth charts. So, I'll be interested to see not only – I mean, Johnny Wilson's had a terrific camp already, but I'm going to be interested to see him in the preseason. I love the idea of a 6'6" third receiver. You put him in with Calcaterra and Goddard, and you almost have a 13 personnel package with three.
You would have loved it. On one rep, they were playing 13, so they had all three tight ends on the field, and the only receiver was Johnny Wilson. So they had Wilson and Goddard and Calcaterra and CJ Uzomah.
And how do you, if you're a defense, how do you defend that? What package do you counter with? I mean, you can't put too many speed guys out there because they're not big enough to handle guys like Wilson and Calcaterra and Goddard.
I keep waiting for somebody to see how many light defenders there are and say, you know what? We're gonna knock these guys off the ball. Nobody's doing it. I'm surprised. I thought Belichick might do it last year, but he really didn't. Didn't have the talent. It's tough to stay disciplined, and especially when you have these explosive offenses, and all of a sudden you're down 10, 14, nothing, and then you're like, well, we better start throwing it. But it'll be interesting. The great Paul Domowitch. Great day to have Damo on the show at P Damo. Make sure you follow him on X. The interesting career of Nick Foles. You're not going to be debating him for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but it is a good debate for the Eagles Hall of Fame. And I agree with you. He will definitely be in it. Where I disagree is I don't think he should. I have higher standards. Not than you. You have. I mean, I think everybody wants to throw everybody in. I'm like, come on.
It's got to be you out there.
Yeah, it's got to be. It's got to be. I don't know. That's for Fletcher and Brandon and Lane and Jason. That's a whole. But everybody throws. I think the Jets have. I brought up Emerson Boozer. That was a good player, but really, he's in your ring of honor. I don't know.
You always remember your first, Johnny Mac. You always remember your first. Nick Foles.
That's true. Yeah. I don't. That's me. Anyway, thanks, Damo.
Damo, thanks for joining, man. We appreciate it. Damo, Hall of Fame selector. We appreciate you being here. As always bring great insight to the show. We'll talk to you next week. All right, Damo?
Take care, guys.
Thank you. There's Paul Domowitch joining us on Birds 365. Always great to talk to Paul when he joins the show. So we appreciate him being here. Johnny Mac, I was happy to hear him say that he should be in Eagles Hall of Fame. I know you might not agree with it, but I was happy.
Well, no, I said he's going to be in there.
I said he was going to be. You didn't agree that he should be in there.
Whether he should be or not, that's where I differ.
Yeah. I think it's a foregone conclusion.
I think it's a slam dunk. He's going in.
Yeah.
I don't even think there's any way he's not going in. But yeah, I don't. And again, these things are not. There's no. One of the commenters asked, can executives go? There's no rules to these things. It's the rules. It's Jerry Jones in Dallas wakes up and says, "All right, I want so and so in." Jeffrey Lurie can put in anybody he wants. There's no rules. So from that standpoint, but if you're going to have one of these things, I would just, especially when you have a history like the Eagles of 91 years and there's a lot of lean times, but there's a lot of good players as well. I think that honor should be special. Whereas more Carolina, Jacksonville, recent expansion teams don't have a long history. You see guys getting in. It's like, but even they get great players. And then when you have the great players, as I mentioned, I use the basketball analogy with Bingo Smith and LeBron James versus Bob Blub and Michael Jordan. It looks worse.
Yep, we'll see what it is. We got a good next 50 minutes. We have Ed Kracz coming up. We'll continue to talk with him, see what he thinks on Nick Foles. Is he going down there to Baltimore today, John, with you? You guys riding together, maybe?
Yeah, rumor has it we may ride together with a couple other guys, so we'll see how it shakes out.
I was thinking that maybe a carpool would make sense. I was thinking
it's tough to get to Delaware sometimes.
How far is the ride to M&T Bank Stadium?
Well, with no traffic, it's like 90 minutes. But
ain't gonna have no traffic.
Last year, I went to this game. It took me 3 hours to get there.
Oof, boy.
And I was going down to Delaware to carpool with people, and the traffic was so bad over the Delaware Memorial Bridge. I was just sitting there for an hour. Yeah. So
3 hours from 90 is a big jump. So that's a lot of traffic. Hopefully you guys get through that tonight. And we'll do a little, 24/7 type of show after it. So I don't know what your schedule will be for that. I'll talk to you about that after the show. We have Ed Kracz coming up in about 10 minutes. We'll talk to Ed, see if they're riding down together. Curious to see what everybody in the chat thinks of the preseason game tonight. I don't anticipate many players are going to. There's no chance they cancel the game, is there, John?
I wish they canceled before we left, man.
Is it possible or?
They cancel preseason games at the drop of a hat now.
Right, it's easy. I mean, it's not. Yeah.
I mean, they don't care.
I don't think Cozy
TV. Yeah, they don't care. I mean,
Cozy TV has any say.
They stopped the Hall of Fame game a bunch over. The first time they ever did that was at the old Veterans Stadium where Brian Billick and the Ravens were complaining about the turf. And they were correct. It was crappy. And they ended up canceling the game because the Ravens were like, I'm not putting our players on this garbage. And it was a big deal at that time. Now there's a flash of lightning off in the distance, and they're like, we're gonna keep everybody in the locker rooms.
Yeah, well, we'll see what ends up happening. If they do end up canceling, I guess it's plausible after hearing that. Hopefully they let you know before you get on the.
They will not let us know before we get down there.
You'll be pulling up to the stadium and you'll get the alert.
Wouldn't surprise me, but then it's off to get some crab cakes. So you gotta make lemonade.
That's true.
Out of lemons.
Hey, that's very true. Good perspective there, Johnny Max. At least you'll get some crab cakes at the very minimum. Actually, now that you say that, maybe a cancellation would be a good thing if you're not the one driving. All right, John, let's get to our next commercial break. Ed Kracz coming up in 10 minutes. Thanks everybody for being here today. Before I go to our commercial timeout, I want to tell you about our newest sponsor, BetUS. They are proud to join us here on JAKIB Sports on Birds 365. We are welcoming them in, so we can't thank them enough for being here and for sponsoring the program. I encourage everybody to check out the pinned comment in the chat and go and check out BetUS. Make sure you use our link, as we will get credit for it. It is also linked in the description. Are you looking for a new sports book this football season, Eagles fans? BetUS is the answer, and JAKIB Sports is proud to announce our new partnership for the upcoming season. Right now, receive a 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, up to $2,000 and up to 200% on a crypto deposit. So if you got any crypto laying around that you don't care for, deposit it and get up to 200%. So good stuff there. If it's good for former Birds quarterback Michael Vick, it's definitely good for JAKIB Sports. So go and check out BetUS. It's betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. Click the link in the description or it's pinned in the chat. Thanks to BetUS. We'll be right back on Birds 365.
Michael Vick at betus.com. Catch an incredible 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits, plus 10% gambler's insurance. BetUS, my online sportsbook and casino.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Is the best vacation one that you find or one you get lost in? One that takes you to new heights or reminds you to go with the flow? To get your feet wet and your wheels spinning? One that lets you find your own rhythm or get carried away? Find the best of yourself. Get lost in the woods. Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction. Go with trust.
Go Birds!
And go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Up. And go Birds.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Friday edition. Preseason game tonight, number 1. Johnny Mac set to head down to M&T Bank Stadium. Hopefully my internet's holding up here. I'm having a little bit of issues with the weather, I guess, today. John, you hear me all right? Everything good here?
Yeah, good on my end.
All right,
you never know. There you're a little bit froze up, but you're back. We'll see. We'll see if it holds up.
John, who do you think is going to be the starting cornerbacks tonight? They're not going to have Slay out there. I guess it would be
definitely not. Slay's definitely not playing. I would say that's as close to a 100%. If you get that on BetUS, bet that. I would be stunned if you see Darius Slay. But Andamo brought up an interesting point. I hadn't thought about it. Is that joint practice coming up with the Patriots this week? In that it's coming up quick. It's going to be on Tuesday. And that's where the starters are going to get the vast majority of their work for that week versus the preseason game. And, Quinyon Mitchell is a starter now, it seems, even though it seems like it's going to be in the slot to start. So it'll be interesting. I was thinking he'd get a little bit of work. The weather might factor into that as well, which we did mention. And that's a shame because I do think they're going to play it cautious in this type of environment, which again points to the ugly side of football because they're not going to worry about trotting certain players out there. And, I think that weather aspect might, even if they were considering playing some guys for a series or two, that might curb their plans, as Nick kind of mentioned, that the weather will play a factor. If the turf is even remotely slippery or bad, and it's probably going to be, I don't like the odds of seeing anybody that's considered a key contributor.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening. The weather coming through is going to be interesting. I don't know how bad it's going to get, but it does say there's a lot. We got a flood warning 2 hours ago out there.
We had a tornado warning.
So I don't know what they're going to. Maybe they would call it early. I'm not really sure what they'll end up doing.
Yeah. I think as it gets later, it's going to get better, actually. So we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
Got it. Let's move in. Waiting on Ed Kracz. He's going to join us here in a couple minutes. Any other thing, John, that's to a watch as a fan for this game that maybe people aren't thinking about? I guess not really. It's kind of a big nothing burger of the preseason games. I don't know. I mean, it's almost like you put certain guys out the pasture, right? And you let them run, and then you cut them before the season starts. It's kind of a dark side.
As we said, it's an ugly side. Like,
yeah, it is.
I talked about the live period. The poor crash test dummies out there going live, and McMullen Castles gets hurt. Fourth quarter, saw Joe Milton out there for the Patriots. Everybody's excited. You make a play and you get noticed. And there's an example of it yesterday. And I talked about it with Eli Ricks last year in Baltimore. So those are the things that, like I said, Anais Smith is one of the 5 guys I wrote on SI because he's been really had a struggle to this point. And, the Eagles want to keep him. They want a reason to keep him. So a guy like that, because they drafted him, guy like that has a chance to turn it all around in one fell swoop. Make a play, catch the football when it comes your way.
What about Bryce Huff? Is Bryce Huff going to play tonight?
No. That's a $17 million edge rusher on crappy turf.
Yeah.
If it were, like I said, if it were pristine conditions, I think maybe Vic would have talked some people into giving the starting defense a drive or two, just to get them some confidence against a backup quarterback. But I think the weather changes that dynamic. I really do.
Let's bring our friend Ed Kracz into the show right now. Ed Kracz in the green room going to join us now here on Birds 365. Ed, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, happy Football Friday, guys.
Yeah, it's enough.
Woo! How exciting.
Yeah. Let's go.
How exciting. How
know.
exciting. This is a very difficult team to beat in the preseason, Ed. Don't count your chickens before they're hatched. Do you think anybody's playing with this weather?
No, I don't. I mean, any of the starters.
Yeah.
I think they need to play at some point, but this might not be the time for it. I think the weather, might have changed some plans. I don't think you run any risk of injuring anybody on a wet field.
Except McMullen, Castles and company. McMullen's already hurt, but
yeah, he's gone.
Right? Third stringers, yeah.
Yeah.
Now he's back on injured reserve. He cleared waivers, but
oh, great.
That's an ugly part of the end. Let's face it. They've got they've had 2 live periods this summer. It's always the third team against the third team. Boy, that's an ugly look. I'm surprised the Eagles don't stop that because they don't care about they don't care about those guys getting hurt.
Yeah, well, they're replaceable. That's how they view it. Your starters really aren't. But I just think tonight we'll probably see. I don't think Becton will play. He's had that on and off again hamstring. I don't think Tyler Steen plays because of his ankle.
Well, I think he needs to play.
Yeah, I see. I think all these guys do. And they're going to New England on Tuesday. They're going to have an open practice in Foxborough. I think that'll be a good thing for the Eagles to go against another team there. But it's only one, and then that's the only one of summer. So I think you might see them get some reps in New England next Thursday. Again, it'll be weather dependent, but I just don't think that they run the risk tonight of playing anybody of value against the Ravens. And like you said, the Ravens are a good team. They're a good team in the preseason. They had won 24 straight games.
Yeah, that's the greatest record in sports, Ed.
Yeah, and then they lost their last 2 last year. And I thought Devin White gave a good answer when I asked him about that run of success. And he said, that's what we want to do here is, everybody should be ready to play. And, even the second and third team guys, those guys should be ready to play. And we'll see if the Eagles guys are ready to play on those units, the second and third teams tonight, because they're going to get a good run and we're going to see what the Eagles have depth-wise.
Yeah. Go ahead, John.
No, go ahead, Zander. I was
gonna say the rookies, Ed, are the thing I would really be looking for tonight. You're not going to play many starters. I don't even know if Quinyon Mitchell's going to play much. He might get a series or 2. John, what do you think? You think Quinyon plays or no?
I don't think so because of the weather. I think maybe in
I'm kind of in that boat as well.
Because he's going to be a starter, and I don't know where on week 1. It might be the slot, it might be outside, but he's going to be a starter.
Yeah.
So
I'm not even sure Johnny Wilson plays.
If he's going to be wide receiver 3,
yeah, because
I might see a lot of Will Greer tonight, which would anger me, Ed Kracz.
Yeah, after taking that 90-minute drive to Baltimore and
90 minutes, man, I got to get the freaking over the bridge. That'll take 90 minutes.
Yeah, we'll be swerving those pop-up tornadoes on 95.
Yeah.
We're carpooling down. Zander, John, and me, and a couple other guys are meeting.
I asked John that. I said, Ed's joining the show. Are you guys meeting each other in the car later on today?
Well, the Eagles played in Baltimore. Martin Frank bailed on me last year because I got stuck in traffic.
I told him to wait, John. I said, listen, we should wait for John. But Martin's like, nope, we're done. We're out.
Martin was right, by the way, because I wasn't getting there. So he made the right decision. So I don't blame Martin at all. But hopefully things work out better. Crossing my fingers, they'll cancel the game, but that's not going to happen. Maybe we get some crab cakes if they cancel the game. That's the most important part. But I put up my 5 guys I'm most interested in seeing. Who are you most interested in seeing?
Well, I'm kind of looking at guys to stand out, on the offensive line. I think Max Sharping and Matt Hennessy are 2 guys that I'm not sure one of those guys is going to make the team. So I think, there's a battle between those 2 guys who's going to make the team, and maybe both don't. But, I want to see some depth on that offensive line sort of emerge because, the Eagles O-line has been banged up through camp, little nagging injuries here and there. So we haven't really gotten a good look at that first team line. But I'd like to see some depth pieces kind of step up. We'll see Dylan McMahon tonight. We talk about rookies playing. He's probably going to be the starting center. Maybe Brett Toth is because he's been working as the backup center. But, I want to see guys like McMahon at center. I want to see Sharping and Hennessy. I want to see who kind of elevates there. I know it's not real sexy, the offensive line stuff, but it's certainly something that needs to be addressed with the depth. Who's going to be behind these starters? And then, you look at the linebacker position. I know one of your guys, John, was Nakobe Dean.
I don't know if he's going to play.
Right. Exactly. You don't know. This weather is a real curveball here. You just don't know who they're going to risk. And he's a guy coming off injury, so maybe you take it slowly with him. But again, behind him, you have who? You'll see Trotter tonight, I'm sure. You'll see Ben Van Summeren, who to me has not really stood out much in camp. I think he had a blitz sack the other day in practice. Kind of the first time.
The Shaq Quarterman show.
Yeah, Shaquille Quarterman. I mean, can he help this team at least on special teams? But Oren Burks is a guy that hasn't practiced at all in camp. He's been hurt. So, is he going to even make the team? I mean, so there's going to be, you're going to have to look at the linebacker depth. And so I'll be interested in seeing, what goes on there. And then we haven't seen a lot of undrafted free agents step up this summer. So I'll be interested to see a guy like Andre Sam, a safety from LSU, an undrafted kid who, flashes here and there. Sean Richardson, the kid from I don't know where he's from,
Sean
but
Stevens, Sean Stevens.
So
he's made a couple plays.
Over
the past couple days. Yeah.
And are these guys even going to make the team? We don't know, but at least they'll
Not
put
a corner, but they might make the practice squad. I mean,
Exactly.
they're fighting for a practice squad. You know who's interesting to me is that Zach McPherson. I mean, that's where he got hurt. Baltimore, first preseason game, got injured. He was going to be a big part of this team last year as the backup slot corner. And he was starting that game in the slot. He was a great special teams player. And then he tears his Achilles in Baltimore. And think about that. A year later, you got to go back to the same field. You got to get over that mental hurdle. That's an interesting story to me with Zach.
Yeah, is he going to play? I mean, again, like you mentioned, the injury. I know he's been doing stuff in camp, but are they going to take it slowly with these guys coming back from injury like him?
Too. They might even not have him. Yeah, I mean, he might not even. To me, he's got to go out there and prove to, other teams that he's an NFL player still, and perhaps, he can get some things done. But, boy, I mean, Sean Bradley got hurt there. That's the big part. Get out of this healthy. That's the biggest part.
Right. And you mentioned Zach McPherson. Interesting. Josh Jobe, does he have a spot on this team? Good special teams player, but, again, at a position that is really crowded and presumably upgraded by Howie in the offseason. So I think he'll play, Josh Jobe, for sure. But I think McPherson, if you're him, you probably are saying, hey, I don't really want to play because I got hurt here last year. Can I wait till New England next week?
That's well, we'll see how it shakes out. But you're right. I mean, basically, if anybody has a hangnail, they might hold him out. So it is kind of difficult to check who's going to play. One of the comments and one of the guys I wrote about is Thomas Booker. And I put him in my group for this reason, Ed. I thought it was interesting. Vic said you want 5 to 7 of those interior defensive linemen on your roster.
Yeah.
Now, to me, there's no way he's getting 7. But if he lobbies Howie and says, I need 6, well, it's going to be Carter. It's going to be Davis. It's going to be Milton Williams. It's going to be Marlon T. It's going to be Moro Ajomo. And that 6th guy, Thomas Booker's guy that I've seen, and he's played pretty well. I think if he continues to play well in the preseason, he might have a very powerful Vic Fangio lobby in his back pocket. You buying my Thomas Booker spin?
Well, I'm buying your spin that Fangio wants 5 to 7. So who is that 6th or 7th guy? And even Marlon T. I mean, is he a lock to make one of those top 5 spots?
I think he is.
Maybe. I mean, he's battling. He's and I know the Eagles have always liked him, but you look at that spot, they don't have a lot of D tackles after Booker. You have PJ Mustipher. You have Gabe Hall, who was an undrafted free agent, who to me, I think he was in on a nice pressure the other day, but hasn't really stood out to me. He was a kid that everybody thought was going to get drafted. He didn't, out of Baylor, a big kid. And that's another group that we'll watch tonight is, who is going to emerge as that, that bottom end of the roster D tackle. Will it be Booker, who I think has done some good things, you're right, and probably is in the driver's seat, but we'll see, how he does against the Ravens' second and third team O linemen. But then I keep an eye on Gabe Hall and PJ Mustipher too. I mean, those are two other guys that, certainly haven't done anything to play their way off the roster at this point, but we'll see how they do tonight and going forward.
Ed, any truth to the rumor that Tanner McKee is pushing Kenny Pickett for the quarterback 2 spot?
Well, I mean, I think, that's something that we can react to for sure. He's gotten some second team reps, but I think the Eagles are pretty happy with what Pickett's done, as the backup. I don't think that would happen. And McKee had a great summer last year. Remember how, he
had a great summer this year. He's been solid.
He's a solid guy. And what you like about him, aside from, his ability that he's shown, is the fact that he's only in his second year of a 4-year contract, right? After being picked in the 6th round last year out of Stanford. So I think, you said we're going to see a lot of Will Grier, but I think we're going to see Pickett and
I hope we see Pickett in the first half and McKee in the second half.
Yeah.
I hope we see no Will Grier, but I fear we're going to see some Will Grier.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it might be a quarter each for McKee and Pickett, and then we'll see.
Second half of Will Grier. Oh,
yeah,
man.
I think that's going to be the rotation. But I think
get the car started. That's when you go.
Yeah, right. Warm it up, Jeff. Warm it up, Jeff Kerr, who's going to be the driver.
Is he going to be the driver? Jeff Kerr, he's like in Berks County. What's he going to come pick you Jersey guys up?
He's got, man. Jeff's new to the group, so initiation. You got to go above and beyond.
Is he bringing you readers too with the initiation? Is that part of the fees?
Yeah.
We should have added he's got to buy us crab cakes too, but we didn't push that far.
No, you didn't push that.
Yeah. But Zander, to answer your question about McKee, I think, certainly he could be the number 2. I mean, he's played that well in the summer, and last summer, like I said, we saw a nice touch on the deep throws and some accuracy on the intermediate stuff. So he could be the number 2. I think he would be fine as the number 2, but I just don't think the Eagles are ready to make that move. And I think Pickett will be the number 2.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Kenny's a good player. I think Kenny's a good backup quarterback, and it's not a knock against Tanner McKee. I get, the Eagles like him. They want to see him more, so they're giving him a few more second team reps, but they're very happy with Kenny Pickett as the backup quarterback. And they're very happy with Tanner as the number 3. So that's, from their perspective, that's a pretty good quarterback room. And I kind of agree with them. One of the things last year with Marcus Mariota, if you remember, Ed, and this happens a lot. I got a theory about this. When you talk about second team reps, if you think about, like, defensive line is a rotational position for most teams in the NFL. So a bunch of teams have backup defensive linemen who get to play, can play at least a competent level, whereas the offensive line, it's 5 guys. They play everything, 100% of the snaps if they're healthy. And those backup offensive linemen always stink to high heaven because they're going against guys who can play. And those second team reps become ugly at times. And last year, they didn't have a center to snap the ball, and Mariota was playing shortstop before you would even get the play, and that throws off the timing and all that kind of stuff. I think the Eagles getting Dylan McMahon, maybe it's not noticeable, but he's a real center. He can make the simple things, and that's sort of helped some of those second and third team reps. But Brett Toth has gotten better as well.
Yeah, good point. And that's a pretty important position that you need to evaluate as the backup center, because I don't think the Eagles are going to have the luxury of having Cam Jurgens start 156 straight games like Jason Kelsey did before he retired. So, chances are Jurgens is going to have, and we even saw Jason get nicked up in game at times during that streak. So,
but he played through everything.
Yeah, he did.
Boy, I remember, I think it was Las Vegas where I thought he was done for the season. Remember at halftime, he was just in agony.
That was the elbow. Was that the elbow?
Yeah, it was the elbow.
Yeah.
And then, it was it was either the second to last play or the last play before the half. And we're all like, Kelsey's done. And he's right back out there, third quarter, with one arm, mind you. Yeah. But he played the rest of the game.
The story I tell with Kelsey and his toughness, and it was a road game somewhere in a really cramped locker where I watched him kind of be helped to a stool in front of his locker, and trainers were around him, and they peeled some kind of sleeve off of his leg, and his leg was just completely black. I mean, it almost looked like they had held it over a fire and burned it. I mean, it was that black, and I'm like, my God, how is he able to even stand, yet alone play, an NFL football game? And then they took him into the trainer's room, had to help him into the trainer's room. And, Kelsey was back at practice the next week, but it looked horrible. So, can Juergens demonstrate that same kind of toughness? If he were to get nicked up, we don't know. These guys are tough as they come, these NFL players. And I think Juergens has toughness to him. But listen, you got to find who's going to be the backup center, because that is a role that is going to probably be counted on sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. We'll see what they end up doing there. Ed, I want to move to a little bit of a different topic. That article came out this week from ESPN from Tim McManus and Jeremy Fowler. Just wanted to get your takeaway on what you took from it, if anything, or if it's all just rear view to you. Or rear view mirror, or what did you think of the article? What were your takeaways?
Ed's take was I didn't write it. That was his take.
Oh, we got the shirts in production, Ed Kracz. The Johnny Mac with the I didn't write it.
I didn't write it.
Coming soon.
And then you have to capture the look too. I was sitting across from John, and the way he kind of looked around, and just.
Well, I was looking for Tim. I'm like, Jalen was asking me. Why Jalen was asking me why essentially the article came out, or why everybody was talking about Wink. And, I was looking around. I didn't see Tim because I was in the front row. And thankfully, Tim chimed in. Yeah, but anyway, it wasn't a big deal. I think a lot of people took it like Jalen wasn't mad at us. He was just having a conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
No, he wasn't mad. He just said, "Hey, why is this coming out randomly?" Yeah. And listen, I thought Tim's answer was good. He wanted to, to give perspective to where we are now. And, but on that being said, I kind of agree with Jalen. Listen, the past is the past. And I thought it was a great report, great story. But, there's something to Jalen too, saying, listen, the past is the past. We've learned from it. And we're moving on from it.
The most interesting part, and I told this to Tim even before we talked to Jalen, the most interesting part to me was the Wink Martindale stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that and sure. Wink's quoted in the article, so it's not like an unnamed source. And he said, I've been coaching for 30, 40 years. Nobody's ever done that before. Nobody.
Yeah. Right.
I thought that was a positive, not for the Giants, but for Jalen Hurts to seek that out. But the negative to me is, well, he didn't have confidence in his own coaching staff if he's reaching out to Wink Martindale. So that's the biggest thing I took from it.
Yes.
And I thought that was interesting. And that's why all my questions to Jalen had to do with that. Like why you reached out to Wink Martindale.
Do you think Wink is the guy who said that, John? Like, do you think Wink is the person who revealed that Jalen called him? I guess it must have been, right?
Well, he's on the record that he called him. He confirmed that he called him.
No, I know, but I'm saying, I wonder, do you think that's kind of like I don't want to say it's like an unwritten rule, but like, do you think Jalen was kind of like, yo, Wink, you put it out there.
He didn't seem, he called Wink a great man, I think, in the press conference.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was like some sort of an unwritten respect rule where if you call a young player calls a coach and he reveals it to everybody and creates
I think Wink showed tremendous respect for Jalen. He was complimenting him by saying that, like, nobody's ever done this in 40 years. That he was saying this guy's different, essentially. And Jalen called him a great man, a great coach. So they obviously like each other and have respect for each other. But to me, that was the most interesting part of the story. And every single one of my questions had to do with that, because that was the interesting part to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jalen mentioned before he did it with Gannon when Gannon was here, but he's in the building. Probably didn't have confidence in Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, like everybody else. Was kind of my spin on that, Ed.
Yeah, listen, first of all, I wonder who told ESPN that Jalen Hurts called Wink Martindale. Like, I'm sure Jalen didn't tell anybody, and I don't know if Wink did. So somebody else knew about the phone call that took place, which is interesting.
Well, I was told the coaches also contacted Wink as well. So, yeah, it's probably
yeah, it's just a weird dynamic. You don't see Daniel Jones calling Jonathan Gannon, you know, to ask for tips from the Eagles DC when he was here. I mean, you just don't see that, which is really bizarre. And you're right. The implication is that Jalen didn't have enough confidence in Nick Sirianni or Brian Johnson's to go to them and ask them for answers, because they didn't have any for him. And you hope that Kellen Moore does on this whole blitz thing. I mean, it's the Eagles had no answers last year for the blitz, and Nick Sirianni didn't have any answers. And that's why Kellen Moore is here, is to provide some of those answers in addition to some other offensive concepts. But that's the concern. And you're not going to see Hurts get blitzed in the preseason. If he plays a series or two, nobody's going to blitz him. Nobody's going to show anything on defense. No. So, you know, these answers that he's going to be given, you hope, you know, are going to be correct, but we won't know until the season begins and the Packers try to do it in Brazil. And then after that, the Falcons. So, you know, we're not going to know if he's got the right answers, but you're right. That was a big takeaway, is him calling Wink. And listen, I thought Wink Martindale was going to be in the hunt to be the defensive coordinator here in Philadelphia. Now I guess he's the DC at Michigan.
Kind of a weird move, but
yeah,
I didn't think the Eagles were going to go that route, just because he's such a different type of coordinator, right? I mean,
well, he loves to blitz, but
I mean, he's the opposite of Vic. Not opposite, but in a way.
I think Eagles fans would fall in love with Wink Martindale very, very quickly. But yeah, the Eagles love Vic. But you know, would have been interesting if they weren't able to get Vic, if Miami still wanted him and stood tall and said, "You're under contract, we're not letting you leave," if they would have shifted gears, because I do think they have a lot of respect for Wink Martindale.
Yeah, for sure.
They would have changed the entire defense. I would have loved it, because I'm sick of watching the scheme. But
well, we've seen Vic Fangio do a lot of blitzing, but I think that's because they want to make sure Jalen can see it coming. He can make the right line calls, him and Juergens. But we have seen a lot of blitzing from.
Yeah, but he's also prepping. I mean, he's going to unleash it. You know, he can't just not practice it. So basically, they had that one day where they blitzed every play. They're just focused on working on the blitz.
But it's been consistent through camp. I mean, he's like since camp began. I mean, early on it wasn't that way, but then the last, you know, maybe week and a half, they've been doing a lot of blitzing. I know they had the real heavy day. I mean, are we going to see that much blitzing and that much chance?
22%. If there's any Bet US prop bet you can get, put the Eagles at 22% blitz
for blitzing.
I mean, Vic's very consistent. I'll ask you guys both this: is that a sign that Vic Fangio is not confident in the players he has to run his regular defense? So he's now throwing different things to see, you know, if other things will work. If you don't have the guys in the room to blitz 22% and run the defense you're used to running, maybe at that point you're a coordinator for a long time. You're like, okay, I'll try blitzing. I'll try this. Is that a sign of that, or is it just practice and you're doing everything because it's practice?
Yeah, I think he's just trying things, but I think he does have the personnel to pull it off. I think Zach Baun could be a very good player to come in off the edge, off a blitz from his linebacker spot. Devin White, to me, is going to be a designated pass rusher. I wouldn't be surprised to see him line up, you know, kind of as a stand-up lineman at times and just bring him or maybe do a delayed blitz with him. But he had 23 sacks for Tampa in 5 years. He had 9 in his second year, 5.5 2 years ago. So he's a guy that can get home. And I think Vic is playing to his personnel. And I think he believes that he has the personnel that can come and get some pressure on the quarterback in blitz packages. But at the rate we've seen it in camp, and I know they're probably doing it just to give Jalen some looks and give that offensive line some different looks so they're prepared. But if he does it at this rate, I would take the over on that 22% that BetUS has.
No, hey, Vic, what Vic is good at, and he's always been good at, is he, and the Eagles have talked about it. Nick's talked about it. It's game day feel, man. He's, if it's 3rd and 13, yeah, he's going to blitz and he's going to get the ball out of the quarterback's hands and he's going to get the defense off the field. But he's not a blitzing defense. He's not Brian Flores. He's not Wink Martindale. He's not going to blitz from the buses. He's going to do it situationally. And that's good, by the way. I don't think you should, just blitz from the bus and say, all right, we got to be aggressive. He's very smart. He's very good. He's got a very good feel for the game. He's got his big analytics that he won't tell anybody. But history says what history says, and he's not going to blitz a ton compared to certain guys like Wink Martindale. And I don't have a problem with that. I do worry about what I worry about, and you've heard me talk about it, Ed, and I've talked about it a lot on the show. So many people have used his scheme over the past few years. Quarterbacks are getting more used to it. And the more used to it they get, the easier it is for them to deal with it. So I want to see some evolution. And like you see almost every play they start from that too high safety look on defense. I want to see a little bit of change up from that because I think quarterbacks are getting too used to it. But we'll see.
Yeah, and especially on the defensive front, he's got a lot of pieces. He could play Jalen Carter on the outside, and we've seen Carter line up a few times, as kind of a defensive end rather than a defensive tackle. So he'll mix it up on that front too. He'll play 4 guys, 5 guys. We saw him line up in a 6-man front with 1 linebacker. We may see some variations, but remember too that. Talking about personnel, does he feel like he needs to do it because he doesn't have enough? I think he's still learning what he has, obviously. And we saw it in Miami last year. That Dolphins defense didn't start the season the way it ended the season, which it was a top 10 defense, I think.
But they had a ton of injuries late. I mean, they lost Van Ginkel. Right. They lost their best pass rusher. Who's the kid from UCLA? I can't think of his name. The Dolphins have a really good pass rusher. He's from UCLA. I can't think of his name.
Yeah, I know who you mean. But they lost Van Ginkel till like the last game of the season. He didn't play in the playoff game. But
they were signing people off the street to rush the passer for the playoff. Jalen Phillips.
That's it.
Tremendous pass rusher. They lost him. They lost Van Ginkel very late in the season, as Ed said. But I remember they had to sign a couple edge rushers basically off the street to play the playoff game. That's difficult. I mean,
and yet they were a top. He made it all work. He was able to cobble it together, and they were a very good defense at the end of the year. So, I like the defense is in Vic's hands. It's a young group, obviously. A lot of guys still need to reach their potential. We'll see what Jalen Carter is in year 2 and Jordan Davis in year 3. But I like the fact that Fangio is in charge of this group because he's been doing it for so long. It's not like a first-time guy like Desai who's trying to figure out what's going on. I mean, Fangio will figure it out. And, I think as the season goes on, he'll find what this defense can do well, and he'll play to that strength.
I find it ironic that Vic loves Sean Desai. Like, if Sean Desai was never here, he'd probably be an assistant on Vic's staff. If he had not been here and obviously it didn't work out. But I say all the time, one last look back at 2023. If people wanted the people that wanted Nick Sirianni fired, they should have focused on that decision, taking the defense away from Sean Desai and giving it to Matt Patricia. I think that was his biggest mistake. That Sean Desai wasn't great, but the Tampa game early was pretty good. The Miami game, They're scoring 70 points. They shut them down the second half against the Rams. There were little signs that things were getting better with Sean Desai. But if people aren't listening to him, I guess, and that's the kind of stuff we can't know, Ed. If the players aren't listening to a guy and he doesn't have that kind of presence, that's tough to overcome.
Yeah, Fangio has that presence. You're not going to see that. I mean, he'll park you on the bench. He doesn't,
Yeah, he might have too much of that presence. We might be the other way because players are going to get pissed off. Like Bryce Huff is handling it very well when he brought that. He's very honest, Vic. I love it, but it's, players will get upset at a certain point with that kind of honesty.
Yeah, well, the worst thing for a player is when you're benched. I mean, that's what they care most about is playing time. Vic can say all these negative things he wants or be as brutally honest as he wants, but if you're still playing, that's all they care about. They want to be on the field. But if you start taking that away from them, then, they're going to get upset.
Yeah.
Ed, I got to do it. Last one for me. I need a prediction.
For tonight's game?
I need a prediction for tonight's game.
For all the sickos
man. It's a first morning I woke up.
For all the sickos that are going to bet at betus.com, that are going to bet preseason football, give them a prediction, Ed.
Yeah, I like the Ravens in this game. I think the Eagles defense is still figuring things out. I don't know who the backup quarterbacks are in Baltimore. We're not going to see
I think Josh Johnson might be the backup quarterback. They got a bad situation.
Huntley, is he not there anymore? Tyler Huntley, did he leave?
Yeah, he left.
Yeah, I think he's with the Giants, isn't he? Or maybe.
I don't know where he went, but he left.
Went to the Browns. Tyler Huntley went to the Browns.
Browns, okay. Yeah. Whoever it is, this defense, just to me, I'm not sure it's ready yet to make plays and to assert itself. I might be wrong. Maybe they'll surprise me. And, they do have a good group of corners, I think, that are going to play tonight. I think Eli Ricks plays tonight. So, they have some cornerbacks that I think can make plays, but they haven't intercepted Hurts or Pickett or McKee a whole lot in 10 days of practice. Twice they've picked them off. And one of them was Sean Stevens, right? The other was Eli Ricks. But I still think, the prediction, I think I'd probably take the Ravens to win this game. They're very good in the preseason. And maybe somewhere, depending on the weather, maybe something like 20-13. I think the Ravens win this game.
Yeah, I'm picking the Eagles to win this game.
Attaboy.
For this reason, guys. I just looked up the depth chart. According to ESPN, and I'm not paying attention to the Ravens, so they might not be right. The second team quarterback in Baltimore is Josh Johnson. The 38-year-old Josh Johnson forced into the NFC Championship game.
I remember it well.
John Reddick blew it up. Josh Johnson.
Yeah.
And then it's Devin Leary and Emory Jones.
Wow.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even know who those guys are.
I don't either. But
that makes three of us.
Yeah. But they're going to want to try to make an impact. They're going to
Emory Jones. I think he played at UF, didn't he? Emory Jones. I think he did.
He's Cincinnati. Everybody transfers. His last school was Cincinnati, but he may have. Everybody goes to 6 different schools now. So,
so true. He did play at UF before that.
We might see a lot of Will Greer versus Emory Jones tonight. So buckle up, Ed Kracz.
We're not going to see anything because the sight lines in the Ravens press box
that's true,
be obstructed because it's under construction.
I don't know if I told that story, but yeah, they built a new press box and evidently they built it incorrectly. And the sight lines are not good.
Ed Kracz, are you an architect? They need you down there if you're an architect down. I mean, what the heck? How do you spend all that money on a new press box and you don't even give the people who need a view of the game? That makes zero sense to me.
That might be good if it's Will Greer versus Emory Jones. It might be good.
Well, we might be sitting out in the stands because it might be a better view. So bring your rain gear, John, because we may have a better view.
I hate dragging around rain gear, but I guess we got to.
Gotta. Yeah, it's going to be raining. But yeah, so who knows what we'll see tonight. They did say they're going to have TVs that we'll be able to watch the game on.
What a disaster this is.
I know.
Oh, man.
So, but yeah, I think that I like the Josh Johnson thing, but listen, he's a veteran. So, he's playing against the defense that isn't quite there yet. So, he could do some good things against this Eagles defense. Depending on how long he plays, he may only play a couple series if he's the main backup.
Got to keep him healthy. He's the backup.
Right. So, but I like the Ravens.
Ed, get down there safe tonight. Over there. We appreciate you being here today on Birds 365. We'll be looking for your reports from the Emory Jones Will Greer Bowl. We appreciate you being here and breaking it down with us, man.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. Have a great weekend. Go enjoy your football Friday, everybody.
Yeah, all
right. Thanks, Ed. See you later.
There's Ed Kracz joining us on Birds 365. Just a couple minutes left to go here. John, you already gave your prediction. I want to go off the Eagles here for this last 3 minutes. Did you see Jerry Jones's comments yesterday?
I don't know what Jerry's doing, man. At some point, you got to worry about, getting a little bit too old and
not adapting to the modern game at all.
I mean, you don't have to say that stuff. Now, my buddy John Machota, covers the Cowboys, does a tremendous job.
We've had him on,
Yeah, he's great. It's great for guys like John who cover the Cowboys. Jerry talks all the time. He talks after every game. He's got a radio show. He's always talking. But as you see, it's bad for the team because, even though I say, Eagles fans are way too excited about the contract issues with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons, they're still going to play this year. They're still good players. The fact that he's got to pay a tax because he's an idiot and doesn't realize that if you do these things more proactively, well, that's, his problem as a very rich guy. Obviously he doesn't care. So they still have those players, but yeah, I mean, it's not a good way to do business. You're essentially taxing yourself by waiting and being reactive instead of proactive. But they do still have the players, and they're not going anywhere. And he's worth $14 billion. So I guess he doesn't care. Oh, I think you're muted.
I do find it interesting to do business that way. I mean, you got CeeDee Lamb tweeting about it, LOLing him, and Michael Parsons
I don't think it's
retweeting. And then on the flip side, though, John, the other thing that came out this week is Devin White's like, I chose Philly because Howie Roseman gets on a FaceTime with me. He tells me how relatable my story is to him, and that he sucked as a GM and had to rejuvenate his career. And I'm like, look, you can knock Howie or you can not like Howie, but one guy's doing business in a way that relates to modern players. The other guy is just not, and it's a stark comparison between the two.
Oh, I'd much rather have Howie Roseman as my GM than Jerry and Stephen Jones, or a combination of both. Now, what I will say is the Cowboys have a very good personnel guy leading their personnel department. They've been very, very good at drafting and drafting talent. And Will McClay is arguably the best in the business from that standpoint. So, but as far as GM goes, yeah, I mean, but Howie's, top 5 in the league at worst. There's very few people on Howie's level.
I think right now I think he's number 1 in the league. I don't think that anybody in the last 3 to 4 years, if you're
I was very early on that train telling people how good Howie was as a GM.
You were right when everybody was knocking him on the Rager picks and stuff. You were saying it still.
Yeah. Now everybody's gone to the other side and says, he's great. He never makes he still makes mistakes.
Yeah. Well, and he made more mistakes in the past, and I think he's corrected a lot of them. And if you look at the last
he generally learns. He generally learns from his mistakes. And he's a very good GM. If you could mesh, the personnel part of it and get somebody with the business acumen standpoint, you'd have maybe the greatest GM of all time. He's very good. I'll just leave it at that.
No doubt about it. John, good show today, man. Get down there safely. I don't know what your schedule is tonight, especially if you're carpooling. So I'm going to be live, obviously, after the game tonight. I might even be live during the game. So maybe I'll check in here and there for halftime or whenever you're available. And we'll get your take on the Will Grier Bowl. Before we get out of here, John, I got to welcome in Jay Perfect. He was our commenter yesterday, John, who said, "Thank you, guys." Nobody says thank you. And today we have some people that say thank you. So I don't want to say nobody does, but Jay started the train yesterday and now he becomes a member today. Jay, thank you, man, for supporting the channel and for being here. Thank you to him. Thank you to Ryan, who also became a member today, and our 4 super chats, Demaria, Jason A-Team, and James Carver. Thank you all for the support today. Johnny Mac, good show. Get down there safe today. And we'll talk to you a little bit later on. All right, brother?
All right, everybody, enjoy the game. Enjoy Will Grier.
You got a final score prediction for me, John, on the way out?
No. Eagles 24-20. How's that?
That's good. That's better than Ed Kracz. You said they're going to lose 20-13. That's going to be
Eagles have better backup quarterbacks if they play them. So that's where I go. Whomever has the better backup quarterbacks is going to win preseason games, because the drastic drop off on quarterback play in these second halves of these games. If you have a competent guy, and I think Tanner McKee is competent, you got a big advantage. But if it's Will Grier, then you're probably in trouble.
Good stuff, Johnny Mac. I will talk to you later on today, brother. Get down there safely. Hopefully, we'll be following along on your reports. Hopefully, the weather holds up and you get some players out there tonight that you can actually report on and cover that are worth something. So we'll be hoping for that, and we'll be following along on your work all day long. Thank you, John.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you later on today on the National Football Show, and plenty of other content coming on JAKIB Sports all night tonight with the game tonight. So stay tuned all day. We appreciate everybody. We'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.